Hello interwebs, welcome to my very first tutorial. I'm doing this one because a lot of people have been asking me how I edit my photos, so I thought I'd run you through one of my more recent photos that a lot of people like and were curious how I got the final product for that. So here's the final photo, and this is basically this is how it came out of camera. I'll just put them side by side just for, comparison's sake. So we're starting here, we're trying to get here, right? Easy enough. So you would think. So let's just jump back to the develop modules, module singular, and select our beginning photo. So the first thing I think I did with this, I'm not just try to remember what I did. I think I obviously the exposure is a bit low, so maybe let's start there. Let's start there. Let's increase the exposure. Let's get it to where we want it to be, more or less there. And then obviously you want to give it a bit of punch, put some contrast in there. The one thing that I almost always do with photos is push this blue saturation slider up. I do not know how it works, but it creates magic. So, it's just magic slider, I call it. So just go ahead and slide that to around, I don't know, 50-ish. I'll put it anywhere between 40 and 50. So I'm going to leave this one around 50, 55, 57. That's fine. So you can see the difference immediately. It just makes your colors that much better. So I'm going to just double click to reset. Actually, let me just disable camera calibration altogether. So I'm going to disable it, enable it, disable it, enable it. So you can see the difference. It's a massive, massive difference. So I like that. I'm going to leave that as it is in terms of the camera, the blue saturation slider. We push contrast a bit up. I might be tempted to push the exposure up a little. That looks about right. And then I'm just going to play around with these other sliders until I get more or less what I like. It's a bit dark right down here around their pants because they're wearing dark colors and we're exposed for the bright parts of the photo, which is the more correct way to expose, I guess, depending on who you are. So I'm going to push those shadows. Ooh, no, let's not do that. No shadows. I'm going to bring them down, actually, come to think of it. It looks cool to me. I'm going to bring them down to around there. I'm actually not happy with the contrast here. I just feel like up here it could be a little bit more punchier. So I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to make it a little bit punchier. I'm going to make the blacks, I'm going to push those down. Maybe there. And then I'm going to push the highlights down because you can see how this is blown out. This is beautiful though, but it's a bit too much. So I like that it's blown out. That's kind of the look I was going for when I shot it, but I feel like it's a bit too much. So I'm going to go ahead and push it down. 43, that looks good actually. I guess we could leave it here. Are we happy though? I don't know. Don't think I am, to be honest. That blue is way too saturated, so I'm actually going to take the blue down right over here in the use saturation lightness, I think it is, or luminance, which is kind of lightness if you think about it. So I'm going to change the saturation of the blue channel. I'm gonna just bring it down. I'm going to bring it just a little bit down till it feels right to me. So I don't know. I think about there. So you don't want to take it all the way. Then you just end up losing all the blue. I take it around there. I can see some of the color is. Wait, let's just see where that color is. Okay, so turns out there's a lot more purple and magenta in those pants. But that's fine. That's fine. So we push the blue saturation down here in camera calibration, and whenever I have blue colors in the photo, I'll almost always bring down the blue saturation up here just to counteract that one down there. Makes sense, I hope. Cool. This is more or less where I have it. Ooh, let's not do that. I'm gonna push shadows up just to brighten it up a little bit. I push saturation a bit down. Sorry, exposure. I feel like it's a bit overexposed. So this is more or less where I got it to be. And then from here, most of the work I'm going to do in Photoshop. I'm gonna press Ctrl E to bring up Photoshop, and I will wait and twiddle my thumbs. Awesome. Photoshop is open. It looks good. It's just loading the photo now. It's a bit slow. Sorry, guys. My machine is okay. It's not really ancient. It's not that bad, to be honest. Okay, I'm just gonna bring this window here so everyone can see it, and just resize that window. Bring it there. So it just fits within the video window. Cool bananas. So now here's our photo over here. I've got an action that I've built to do what I want to show you guys here. So I've got a retouch action where I just click the action, click play, and just watch magic happen. Just watch, wait for it, doing magic, doing magic, doing magic. So what has happened here is that it has smoothed out all the skin, and it has actually increased the exposure. It's done a lot of awesomeness. So if you can see before, after, before, after. Sometimes it overdoes it like this. I feel like it's a bit overdone. So what I'm gonna do is duplicate this texture layer. I'll get to what those layers are in a bit. Make another copy. So now it's actually sharpened that a little bit more, so you see how awesome that looks. Cool. So instead of using that action, which you guys wouldn't have, I am going to undo everything. So at this point, what I want to do is just smooth out the skin, sharpen this image a little bit because it's not really sharp at all. So I'm going to actually start with the sharpening. There's a couple of ways of doing that. I'll show you the first way, which is just duplicate your layer. I'm gonna make 2 copies just because I don't want to work on my background layer. So I'm gonna call this one original. Boom. I'm gonna call this one sharpening. Awesome. And then, so the sharpening layer, I'm going to use a technique, not technique so much, it's a filter, it's a high pass filter. So I'm going to use a high pass filter to sharpen that image. So how that works is these 2 layers are exact copies of each other. I'm going to take that top one though. I'm going to go filter, other, high pass. So I'm going to apply a high pass filter, and you could sharpen this by a lot, or you can sharpen this by a little. I prefer to sharpen it by very little. I'll show you why in a second. Because if you feel like it's not sharp enough, you can always duplicate the layers at a later stage. So 0.5 is usually what I work with. If you look closely here, that just kind of pulls the texture. I need to find a place where this actually, oh, it's probably better to see it here. You see where that jacket ends right there? You see that line? So it kind of pulls the textures in the photo into this layer, into this top layer. So now we've got a texture layer up here, and then we've got the original underneath that. So we're doubling the texture, so to speak. I'm going to change the blending mode of that sharpening layer to... So you could use overlay, or you could use linear light. Linear light, I feel like sometimes is too strong. So I start with overlay, and then I will duplicate the layers as I see fit from there. So to duplicate the layers, it's Control J, or you could just keep dragging them into here. So you could drag sharpening, boom, more sharpness, boom, more sharpness, or Control J until we're happy with how sharp this image is. I think that's about sharp enough. Yeah. I'm going to merge these into one layer. Select all of them. Control E to merge the layers. I'm going to still call this sharpening. And I'm going to change that back to overlay. I don't know what happened there. I think it changed because I merged the layers. Cool. So we've sharpened this photo. Let me just show you what it looks like now. So this is after. This is before. Sharp. Not so sharp. Sharp. Awesome. Cool. So now we've got this layer that's been sharpened. I'm gonna delete this after group because this is actually from the action that I showed you guys in the beginning. That we're not doing that because you guys don't have that action. I could make it available, but you need some paid for plugins, which I guess you could totally buy. Maybe I'll put in the description of the video. Awesome. Okay, so I've got the original, I've got the sharpening. I'm gonna merge these again into one layer. I'm gonna go Control E. So I just selected both of them and press Control E, and I'm gonna call this one sharpened. Cool. So now I've got a sharpened layer. I just need to fix up whatever issues are, skin issues I see. And what I usually use is the clone stamp tool for that. And to get that, you press S, or you come here, and then you say, I want clone stamp, please. And I zoom right in. If they have good skin, so that this actually doesn't really help. But just to show you for an example, if I could find like a blemish. Okay, that's not even a blemish, but it's some artifact. So I'm gonna remove that. So the way you do that is pressing Control Alt. Your pointer will change to this target kind of thing. And that means when you press Alt and you hold it down, and then you sample some parts of skin that you like, so you can replace this part of skin that you're trying to get rid of. So I'm going to hold down Alt, I'm going to click here, I like that part, and then I'm going to come just paint over that. Boom. It's like magic. Before, after, before, after. It's gone. So I would do that for a couple of things. I don't like those little pimples there. Not really pimples. They have really good skin, so this just made my job really easy. So say we've fixed a lot of the skin. I actually really doesn't need much smoothing. They have really good skin, but I'm still going to show you the my technique for skin smoothing. I'm going to take this layer, this sharpened layer, which is the image we're working on now, and press Control J to copy that, and Control J again to copy that. So I've got two copies. I'm not going to work on this anymore. I'm going to keep this there for just for backup. Both of these totally irrelevant at this point. So these two layers, this bottom one I'm going to call blur. I'll tell you why in a bit. This top one I'm going to call texture. I'm going to call that texture. So this technique I'm about to use is called frequency separation. And how it works is you take your original image and you separate it into color information and texture information. So the color information is going to be here in the blur. So how you do that is by, I'm going to just hide that for a second, by using the Gaussian blur filter, which is here, Gaussian blur. So I'm going to apply Gaussian blur to the blur filter, right? Awesome. So the question now becomes, how much blur do we want? And the answer is just about as much as it takes to remove the texture in the skin. So as soon as you don't see texture anymore, I'm just going to increase this until the texture disappears. I don't know, can you see the texture? I can't. So maybe 2.2-ish. Okay, right, 2.5. So the texture in the skin is gone at this point, right? Cool. So we've applied the blur. You can see that image is extremely blurry, and then I'm going to bring back the texture one. So now we've gotten rid of the texture on the blur layer, so I'm going to bring back this texture layer, and then I'm going to take the textures that were on this layer before we blurred it and put them on the top layer. So I'm going to suck the texture out, put it on the top layer. The way to do that is you select your texture layer and you go image, apply, and then you choose subtract. So we're subtracting what's missing from the original image after we subtract the blur. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So we want to choose the blur layer, right? Cool. And then what you will notice is this kind of looks like that high pass filter. This might actually, I might have blurred it a bit too much at this point, maybe too little, because you can see some color information on this layer, but that's fine. It's really down to taste, so play around with it until you're happy with it. I wouldn't normally be happy with this if I was delivering this image, but you know, for teaching purposes, this will do just fine. So the layer that you select is the blur layer. It doesn't need to be called blur, it could have been called whatever, but I called mine blur. So the layer you choose is the blur layer, and the blending mode is subtract. And then opacity is 100, scale is 2, offset is 128. I don't know why those figures work, but that's exactly the figures you want to use. So don't be adventurous here. Cool. Okay. So now we've got this weird gray texture layer on top. To fix that, we just change the blending mode of that to linear light. So now what you'll notice is the combination of these two layers. I'm going to group them, sorry. I'm grouping these two. I'm going to just, yeah, group one's fine. I'm going to call that group one. You will notice, I'll bring the sharpen layer back, that the combination of these two layers equals this image. So if I hide that and unhide, it should make zero change. Awesome. Cool. So now we've managed to separate this image into blur and texture, which is color information and texture information. And what's really cool at this point is you can do some skin smoothing, which is really just blending colors across. You see how his skin seems a bit blotchy here. So it's a bit dark here, but a bit lighter here. So you can fix stuff like that by just selecting it. I should probably tell you what to use to select. You use the lasso tool and just select a patch of skin. The one very important thing is to have a fairly decent sized feather. So I use 10 pixels because of the size of the image. To see how much feather you have, press Q. It'll bring out, you see how feathered it is here. That's a fairly good amount of feathering, because you don't want sharp edges, because it won't blend very well. I press Q again to remove it. So I've selected this area. What I'm going to do now is just filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then I'll just increase, let's zoom in there. I'll just increase this until the skin looks decent to me. So that's about decent. You can zoom out. So that's without blur. That's with Gaussian blur. You see how it cleans up the skin without, with, boom. So you can do that for little patches of skin at a time. That looks lovely. I'll do this again. For here, no. Let's do it for that patch of skin. Just Gaussian blur, beautiful. It's beautiful. Let's keep that. So you see before, after. So that just cleans up the skin. Yeah, like I said, these people have really good skin. Good skin couple. I'm gonna do her now. Whoa, that sounds so wrong, but you know what I mean. So I selected a patch of screen, Control Q, and the cool thing is you can vary how much blur you wanna apply at different points. So this is before, after. So you can pretty much play around with it until you find what you like. So I like that. That looks okay to me. That looks nice. Yeah. I'm gonna do some here around the neck area. Control Q. That's my shortcut for Gaussian blur. You can set up your own shortcut. That looks nice. You've got a bit of blotchiness going on here. I want to select that. And then just blur that. Boom, boom, boom. So we've smoothed the skin, as you can see. Before, after, before, after. That's beautiful. So we've done that. So the one thing that I didn't like about this photo, I had to shoot it at f4. I would have liked to shoot one at at f2.8 wide open, but I couldn't because I wanted the sun to be very specifically to look like that, to glow that way. So if I had shot it at f2.8, it would have been super bright. Cool. So I just stopped that down to f4, and then I put flash on them. There's a flash if you see the stand right here. It's like lighting them from the front. Cool. So what ended up happening, obviously, I didn't get the depth of field that I wanted. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. Cool. So I'm happy with this at this point. Normally I would duplicate this group and then merge, but I'm just gonna merge this group. I like working with merged layers instead of groups, mostly because I'm not that good at Photoshop. I'm sure you can do it with groups. Cool. I'm gonna merge that, and we're going to call it smooth. Smooth. So we've fixed the skin, as you can see. Beautiful. Love that. Lovely. Okay, so what I want to do at this point is just blur this background out. I want to blur that out. I want it to look like it was shot at f1.2. You know what I mean? Maybe let's crop this light out first. Let me crop that light out first. Write it in. Get closer. I think my crop was about that much. And I brought that up. So, you know, rule of thirds means to write about where the lips are, which kind of pulls your attention there. And then you're like, oh, so romantic. And I'm like, no, so rule of thirdsy. Awesome. Lame joke. So what I'm going to do at this point is I want to blur this background out. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a tilt shift lens blur. So I'm going to I need to select the area I want blurred, obviously, firstly. I'm going to use this quick selection tool to just select. So basically with this quick selection tool, you just select and drag. I'm going to just select and drag, and then I need to include that. Whoa, you see what happened there? It included the pole. Obviously the pole shouldn't be as blurred as the background because it's not how cameras work. So to fix that, I'm going to just make this a bit bigger. I'm going to press Alt. You see how that plus here changes into a minus when I press Alt? Yeah. So I'm going to subtract the pole. I'm going to just click and drag. This is not going to be super clean because, you know, it's really just for teaching purposes. And then you see that part? We wanna add that part. Sorry, we wanna subtract that part. We don't want the jacket to be included in the blur. So let's subtract that. Also, it does a fairly good job at selecting. I'm gonna go smaller with this. Select and add. Cool. So we've got a fairly decent selection. We're missing some hair here, so let's add that. Subtract the hair because we don't want the hair to get blurred, right? If I wanted to be really accurate with this, I would use a Refine Edge, which is this really awesome tool. Let me just show you quickly, maybe. Select. Where are you? Refine Edge. There you are. Refine Edge. And I'm just going to zoom in here so you can just see what it actually does. So I want to select some stuff. So what I do is just draw the parts where I want Photoshop to kind of figure out that there's stuff there to be included. And Photoshop is very good at that. It's like, hey, yes, I see what you mean. I will include that in my selection. I'm like, yes, Photoshop. Okay, we're happy with that selection. So it's kind of just made it a bit finer and included the little hairs there. Cool. So Now we've got our selection. It's beautiful. It's awesome. I'm gonna duplicate this layer because, like I said, I don't wanna work on that layer. That's the smooth layer. I'm gonna call this layer blurred. Did I spell blur? I hope so. So we've got our selection. So what we do at this point is just filter, blur gallery, um, tilt shift. And what happens is you get this here uh, thingy-majika, and basically how this works is this is the center of your blur. So everything up, so it gradually blurs up and gradually blurs down. But we don't want that. We want this to look super realistic. So we want to blur from the bottom of the image and gradually grow up. So how we do that is bring this down here, and about there, I believe. And then just increase the blur until you're happy. Uh, you want this to, I personally wanted this to look super dreamy. Looked like it was shot at f0.1, which doesn't exist, I think. Awesome. So about there, but here's what I don't like. Okay, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, about there. What I don't like now is that this is too in focus and that's too blurred. So what I do is I increase the fading of the blur, so it'll fade much more gradual. So you'll see. I hope you can see when I move this that the blur actually moves there with it. So I'm gonna push that up so it's a much more gradual fade, and I'm gonna push this a bit more down actually. Yes, that is lovely. If I do say so myself. If I do say so myself. Cool. I'm happy with that. Okay. Click. Control D to unselect, and we're done at this point. So just to quick recap of where we started. We started here, started with a very in-focus background that was distracting. We started with some not too bad skin, but could have been better skin. And we started with an image that wasn't sharp, and we took it here, where we sharpened the image. So no sharpening, sharpen with obviously the blotchiness removed. Awesome. Then we took it here where it was sharpened. Then after that, we smoothed the skin out. I'm gonna just unhide that layer. We smoothed the skin out. It looked beautiful. And then we applied the blur. And that's how the magic happened. And that's it. At this point, look, I would probably sharpen this a bit more. I'm not 100% happy with it. And so, yeah, I'm actually going to do that. So let me just duplicate this blur layer, Control J. And then I'm going to go Filter, Other, High Pass. And I'm going to apply a bit of sharpening, maybe 0.4 for the radius, 0.5 for the radius. Yeah, that's okay. Then I'll change that to linear light. Look at that. After, before, after. Beautiful, sharp. And I think that's it. I'm going to close this and save it in Lightroom. Yes, please, save. And then we're going to go back to Lightroom. Because remember, we started in Lightroom. Boom! Bob is your uncle. You have an uncle named Bob now. Or an auntie. Could be an auntie named Bob. Cool. So there's the image that we ended up with. If I could just maybe find the original to compare with. Let's see, where are you, original? There you are. So this is the original. This is what we ended up with, side by side. This is how the magic happened. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I feel like it was a bit too long, longer than it needed to be, but hopefully I'll get better with time as as I work at it. Yeah, I should have probably hidden all these people's weddings over there. But yeah, no, it's all good. Um, So yeah, if you've got any specific things that you want me to teach you, or if you want me to go into detail with frequency separation, skin smoothing, cleaning out blemishes and stuff like that, just let me know. I will totally do that for you. Ooh, that 30 minutes, 30 minutes. Let's not go above 31 minutes. But yeah, awesome. Thanks for watching. Cheers.